Look, I know this is kind of edgy, but I still find this extremely cool. Armed with Wings. I think these were likely the best looking Flash games ever made. The black and white aesthetic is just beautiful. Everyone's heard about how limitations drives creativity. People's brains tend to freeze up when they're overloaded with options. At times, a giant blank canvas can be intimidating, like where do I even start? Your ideas can get feature creeped and projects just end up vaporware. I don't know that much about the creator, Daniel Sun, but the boundaries of limitations may be how he landed on this art style. Proper coloring takes more time than you may think. Screw it. Everyone is a silhouette, and it worked out great. The character designs thrive in Greyscale. It's quite rough in the first few entries, but it does grow into something majestic. The animations get fancier and smoother. Cutscenes have more detailed versions of characters that keep with the vibe, and backgrounds get better and better. The world becomes melancholic and lonely in the best way possible. I would say Dark Souls vibes, but I think it's closer to Shadow of the Colossus. So how's the actual gameplay? It's pretty good. Well, it gets pretty good. It's a 2D action platformer, but the early entries in this 7-game series did not know if it wanted to be a platformer yet, and the action was not fully formed. Also, the controls are some of the floatiest I've ever played. To be fair, the early games were clearly made by a singular teenager. Armed with Wings 1 has music from Twilight Princess. There's some spelling mistakes in the intro. Divine is divine, and until has 2 L's in it. The first game establishes basic combat and a bird that's a lifelong companion in half the games and doesn't appear in the other half. Combat is very simple. Basic attack, uppercut, downstrike, and block. You can't jump, but there is some janky platforming, some basic puzzles that all involve your bird, and some boss fights consisting of random swinging. So straight up, this isn't good. The visuals are the best part about it, but the best thing about the visuals is how much they improved in later entries. I also don't think a proper theme has been decided on yet. This is the one place in the entire series where a gun appears. There's nothing to the combat. Most of your deaths are going to be via spike pits. Controls being as off-putting as they are makes the whole game feel off-putting to play. An attempt was made to have some sections visually look like platformer levels, but nothing was done to give you platformer mechanics. The puzzles are although I don't know why the timing for this bird maze is so unforgiving. The game's fairly glitchy, plenty of walls just don't have collision. All that being said, again, this was clearly made by someone very young. This seems to have been the first major venture Daniel Sun made in game development. Game dev is hard. Everyone's early career projects are messy. It's all part of the general learning process. This game is far better than anything I would have made at the presumed age range of teenager. Armed with Wings 2. So I assume the devs made the early games as a teenager based on the vibes alone. In the second game, some characters get names, and we get to use some unique looking swords. And yeah, this was made by a teenager. Quima Tormenta. The story has a slightly bigger role. Previously, Lone Wanderer / Rebel Leader dies to Tyrant, gets brought back somehow and beats Tyrant. We play as the Tyrant right after he lost. His army has turned on him, and other rebel leaders that he has killed in the nebulous past have started to come back to life. The Tyrant, Vanir Lord, who I'm just gonna call Lord or Tyrant, escapes to some friends that clearly have a separate group chat that doesn't include him. He tells them he needs to find some elemental blades to gain more power. They go along with it. Some more rebel leaders come back and they each guard a blade. Your friend betrays you with the final blade. Lord kills him, the Lone Wanderer comes back to fight the Tyrant, and the Wanderer loses. But it turns out, he was chosen by this world's god. God tells Lord, "You're supposed to lose here, man." Revives everyone Lord has killed and traps him in a white void. The end. Combat has improved a good amount, and platforming has been improved slightly. You can actually jump now, but the controls are still slippery. You no longer have a bird companion who can scout for you, meaning you're going to fall into slightly more death pits. Instead of one attack key, you have designated punch, kick, and sword buttons. Each of them have their own mashing combos, and you can roughly mix them. There's a grab you will rarely use, a projectile for some puzzles, and a special attack that changes what it does depending on which silly sword you have equipped. By default, it's a heal, which is honestly your strongest option. Combat is smoother, but it is still slightly awkward. The boss fights make fairly interesting enemies, but you're still going to be mostly dying to spike pits. The silhouette visuals have a bit more detail to them now. It's a marginal improvement to the best part of the first game. You also get an extra sword for New Game Plus, which is neat. It's improvements all around. Impressive considering there was a relatively short gap between the two. There was a larger jump in time between the second and third game, resulting in a larger jump in quality, which is in contrast to the only entry in the series that I think is an active downgrade. Red Moon, made after Armed with Wings 2 but went back to the combat of 1, adding the occasional super fancy special attack. Your strikes seem weaker, either that or enemies here just have way more health. You move forward too much with each swing, it's better to just run past. However, the platforming itself has improved. You have more movement options, the levels are explorable, and you can gather collectibles, but it's still quite floaty. Controls are still awkward and hinder both combat and platforming. Also, some of these orbs lead directly to death pits. Why would you do that? Visually, it's still a nice aesthetic, but I don't like the red haze. This particular shade of red does stand out in a gray world, but not in a good way. The game is a mixed bag, worse combat, better platforming, but in this series, platforming is secondary to combat. In terms of story, the game's actually quite important. It's a prequel to everything, and you play as the mother of the third game's protagonist. Although I think for voice actors, Daniel's son just grabbed who he could.
No, we shouldn't be using our power in this conduct.
You play as Ayana. She's following Whipsword Guy, and not by choice. He's the betrayer from the second game. I don't remember his name. He's not very relevant. You were allies of Lord, but the Red Moon seems to give people power boosts, so Slickback here thought, alright, time to start backstabbing. You platform your way to Lord, beat him in the fight, but lose to him in cutscene, and you both run away. Ayana doesn't say much here. She goes along with the plan of the guy that's never going to show up again. It's better in 3. She settled down in a village, acting as its most veteran fighter and main protector. She's also mentoring her son to fight. The child is dadless, in like a biological sense. Younger me thought it meant Ayana adopted a random baby, but no, it seems she did have a kid but just skipped the first phase of that process. Apparently, the world itself gave her a child for the sole purpose of creating another vessel for its god. The first game's protagonist is also here, and because the kid now exists, the god of this world does not want to possess him anymore. Imagine aging out of being the chosen one. Anyway, that's all backdrop. Armed with Wings 3. It's the best game of the main trilogy. It's the best game in the series until Rearmed came out. Visually, this is likely the best looking Flash game ever, and it does it in grayscale. There's an insane amount of detail and expression to the black and white cutscenes. I'd never watched shadows fight each other in such fidelity. Some airborne stuff is kind of silly, but every attack has weight behind it and some moves are spectacles. There's original music here and some of it is quite good. The village music is perfectly somber. Like the world has ended, the land is desolate, you're almost alone, but you're surviving and honestly doing quite well. These controls are far smoother. Every surface is no longer covered in ice. The bird is back. He is no longer bound by a timer so he can scout better, but for some reason, he controls like he would have in the first game and has a bit too much momentum when moving. Also, you can use him as a stepping stool for an extra bit of platforming. I don't think the bird likes this addition. Level exploration and collectibles from Red Moon have been added. This time the collectibles are usable. The main way to unlock new spells is to explore the area. The combat has been refined. Movement is arrow keys and WASD is everything else, as you can intuitively see with this neat UI. There's the standard mix and match for fist and sword, but single button combos are a bit too strong for that to be worth it. There's a higher variety of enemies now and the bosses are much better to fight, even if they're relatively easy for their appearance. There's kind of an EXP system involved, although it is closer to a currency system. This game has more direct stats and numbers for combat. Damaging enemies gives you experience. You can use it to directly improve some stats or get some perks, like health regeneration, jump height, or anti-flinch. It's not like super in-depth, but it's perfectly functional as a background progression system. I would like to note the mechanic that is the most consistent across these games. Instant kill spike pits and me dying to them when I really shouldn't. You're not going to die often in these games, but it's going to be via pits. The story takes place some years after 2. You play as the son of Iana. Old minions of Lord appear and cause some havoc. Someone that looks like the White Hollow shows up. It's named Network for some reason, and he stares at you. Armed with Wings is this world's god, and Network is the opposing equivalent force to that godhood. They were supposed to have taken each other out in the intro. You go to where Lord is sealed and we meet with the protagonist of the first game. Lord is immediately broken out by Network and our group retreats. The 3 of us look for the tyrant. Mom gets captured, we find Lord. Lone Wanderer chases after Lord and dies off screen. We find Mom and she dies on screen. This causes the kid to get possessed by God. Network then gets the shit beat out of him by a kid. The kid then revives his mom and Wanderer. Lord gets dramatic finished, the end. I think the plot's fine. This is likely the final endpoint of the story. Games came out after this, but they take place during or before this game. It is fast-paced and these games in general are rather short. Mom getting captured and her dying happen like 7 minutes apart. We meet Wanderer and he instantly fails at his job. We have him in our party, but he runs off to fight by himself and dies off screen like a level after he joins. Speaking of which, this is essentially a slightly longer level of Armed with Wings 3, where you play as the previous protagonist again. He chases Lord through some tunnels filled with new enemies, but since he canonically loses the fight, you actually play as Lord for the confrontation. I was dumb and did not realize this the first time. Here's me running off the edge. Movement is mostly the same as 3, but the way you attack has been changed. You have 4 different moves, and you have to build them up through basic attacks. Your special moves essentially work off of a combo gauge that degrades with time. Also, you get a speed boost when it's near full. You have a basic attack, a useless double slash, a big slash, and a very fancy looking chain striking ultimate. The ult drains your gauge, but at the same time, every hit with the ult fills it back up. When you play as Lord, he gets his own moveset, all of which mimics what he does when you fight him in 3, which is neat. It's a distilled version of the other games. There's very little puzzle solving or platforming, it's mostly action. Visually, it's again amazing. A lot of the attack animations have been exaggerated to a perfect degree. This would be the last game in the series for quite a while, up until the 2017 remake, but before that, let's talk about the latest entry. Ash Belt. It's subtitled Armed with Wings, but it's fairly disconnected from the others. Made in a game jam, it's a survival high score type of game. You one-shot everyone and you're one-shot by everyone. You have ammo for your bow and sword. It's technically unlimited, but they need to recharge. It's designed so you can't just spam one or the other. Just using one will make the weapon run out quick, and will leave you spamming a button that does nothing. The enemies surround you in predetermined waves. As you get further into waves, you gain a double jump and shoot more arrows per attack. You get overwhelmed easier than you may think. It's a fun little game. Turning does sometimes feel sluggish, but overall it mostly has smooth and snappy controls. And as usual, the visuals for everything is amazing. Anyway, Armed with Wings Rearmed, a modern remake of the very first game. The end result of everything Daniel's son learned. The visuals have entered their final form. It feels like a journey through a barren land. Some parts do just look like platformer levels, but most places you go through clearly have some sort of history to them. A lot of the areas in the previous games had walls that were unbreaking straight lines, even in areas that were meant to be caves. It was a small thing, but it did make the world feel more artificial. In contrast, everywhere in Rearmed has imperfections. Even the area meant to be a building has some wear and tear. I already thought the animations from 3 and Culmination were great. Rearmed smoothed things out even further. The attacks are as exaggerated as I want them to be. Every light attack has quick blurs, and every heavy attack has the impact and force they should have. There was clearly a lot of care put into how your character moves. The UI is very slick. I don't think UI is mentioned enough when it comes to video games. They can really make a difference. Here, it seems to be designed for black and white visuals, cause, well, yeah. The controls and overall feeling of the movement are as tight and snappy as they have ever been. They kind of need them to be as the game is embracing its puzzle platformer heritage. It's still mostly a 2D beat 'em up, but levels are explorable and your characters have decent vertical movement to use for exploration. There are 40 levels to the main game. Some of them are directly taken from the first game but made modern. The boss fight with that beast warrior is here and it's no longer a gimmick fight. Surprisingly, few levels are linear. A good chunk of them have multiple endpoints, and almost all of them are explorable with secret areas. The thing you're exploring for, these relics. Each level has one and you unlock an extra playable character once you collect them all. The flagpoles are the endpoints of most levels. The number of flags indicates the rarity and general difficulty of getting to that exit. The main thing is the point bonus. Points are this game's progression system. A run ends after dying 3 times, which doesn't mean much. Unless you're playing on the hardest difficulty, you can continue pretty much exactly where you left off. You cash in all points you accumulated on death or quit out to unlock new weapons, actives, and passives. All stats, passive abilities, and active abilities are attached to weapons. The main 4 stats are health, damage, speed, and range. Each weapon can have up to 4 slots for passive or active abilities. Most weapons have abilities that are pre-attached to them and cannot be changed. This system of progression is different from the pseudo-RPG system in 3 and is more in line with an arcade action game. I think it's better. The controls are an expanded and modernized version of what Armed with Wings 1 had. A is light attack, holding up or down while pressing A gives different types of light attacks. S is heavy attack, holding up or down gives you a different type of heavy attack. You can charge the downwards heavy. D is block, dodge, and parry. You dodge by hitting D while holding a direction, and whether you block or parry depends on the context of enemy attacks. Q and W are for any active abilities you may have gotten. Every light attack has a 1-button spam combo attached to it. Heavy attacks are 1 hit but are good against blocking enemies. Combining these attacks, weaving in and out of the fight, and juggling the shit out of some guys is a fun gameplay loop. Being a direct remake of the very first game means the story is, again, Wanderer dies to Lord, gets revived, fights his way back, and beats him up. I don't think a remake of the other entries are coming. Rearmed came out 8 years ago in 2017, and we haven't heard much of an update since. The final boss is a good fight. I mean, Phase 3 of the final boss is a pretty good fight. Phase 1 is you fighting Lord while he's refusing to use his sword. It's easy to combo him out. Phase 2 just flinches too easily. He teleports out of your combos but in a very predictable way. Phase 3 gains super armor and can no longer be flinched. Actually, this happens to the other 2 bosses when they reach low health as well. But it's most potent here cause Lord can juggle you back and is incredibly quick. It's a larger than you expect jump in difficulty. The fight is much closer now. Though you do have a crutch, you get 1 free revive in Phase 3, turning you into Armed with Wings on your first death. Your moveset is the exact same, but you're significantly faster in all aspects. Your dodge also turns into a blink with more immunity frames. You're much stronger, but you can still get comboed to death. It just makes the fight have a faster pace, which I do prefer. Do be careful if you have a revive passive on your weapon. When you turn into Armed with Wings, you're supposed to be at full health, but I think the weapon revive interferes with that and you end up with like 20% health. Also, this text box glitched out one time and the Steam achievement for beating the game on hard mode won't activate unless you go to an older version. Excluding those examples, I had a completely bug-free experience. Beating Story Mode unlocks Lord as a playable character. He has a completely different moveset. Every attack Wanderer does involves his sword. Lord rarely uses his sword. He seems to like fist fighting more. Every single heavy attack he does is magical, and they give him a fair amount of aerial movement. Collecting all 40 relics gives you an extra level to stomp through, and armed with wings as a playable character. He was limited as a final boss crutch for a reason. The main game is definitely not balanced around his speed. There's also this big hand guy. He has unlimited flight and he only has one attack. You don't unlock him, he's available from the start. So that's all of them. For the entire series, we basically watched Daniel's son get progressively better at making video games. He just hasn't done game development in a while. His most recent outing was working on Bluey Season 3. I guess that makes sense. His main passion is clearly animation. Hey, been a while. Life happened. I'm sticking to black and white for a bit longer.